The second part of Unit 3 as we look at Module 33, Stress and Illness. 33-1. What events provoke stress responses and how do we respond and adapt to stress? I think all of us feel stress, but we may not really actually know what it is or how it's defined in psychology. Stress is the process by which we perceive and respond to certain events, called stressors, that we appraise as threatening or challenging. Stress arises less from the events themselves than from how we appraise them. Stressors appraised as threats can lead to strong negative reactions, and experiencing some stress early in life builds resilience. Extreme or prolonged stress can cause harm. Stressors fall into basically three main types. The first is catastrophes. These are unpleasant, large-scale events. There's typically significant damage to emotional and physical health. Significant life changes. These are personal life transitions. Many significant changes happen during young adulthood, such as finishing high school, going to college, finishing college, and entering a career. All of these are considered significant life changes. And these are usually a cluster of crises, and they raise the risk of disease and health, especially when they occur together. And the third is daily hassles and social stress. These are the day-to-day challenges that we experience. Some people are more affected by everyday hassles than others, with stress taking a greater toll on their well-being. Some also have various forms of prejudice compounding these daily challenges. Walter Cannon in 1929 viewed the stress response as a unified mind-body fight-or-flight system. Hans Selye in 1936-1976 extended Cannon's findings, proposing a general three-phase general adaptation syndrome, or GAS. In this syndrome, the first phase is alarm. The sympathetic nervous system is activated. In phase 2, the body and the person experiences resistance, and the body copes with the actual stressor. And in phase 3, exhaustion, the body's reserves get depleted. Selye's basic point, although the human body copes well with temporary stress, prolonged stress can damage it. If we look at this curve in terms of stress resistance and the three phases, we can see in phase 1, when we have the alarm reaction, it sort of dips a little because we realize that we're not going to resist the stress as much. As we start to resist it, you can see the curve increases, and our stress resistance drops after we've exhausted our reserves, and that is as long as the stress is still occurring. So we can see that now, unfortunately, with disasters such as what happened with Hurricane Irma, and especially and Hurricane Harvey, and especially with Hurricane Maria, as the island of Puerto Rico as well as the other islands in the Caribbean are still dealing with the damage that was caused to that, and individuals in this area are probably reaching phase 3 according to the general adaptation syndrome. 33-2. How does stress make us more vulnerable to disease? Psychoneuroimmunology studies our mind-body interactions. Our thoughts and actions, the psycho part, they affect your brain, the neuro part, which controls the stress hormones that influence your disease-fighting immune system, and this field is the study of ology, those interactions. And ology actually emanates from the Greek word logos, which literally means the words of. Stress and vulnerability to disease. 4 types of cells are active in the search and destroy mission of the immune system. We have B lymphocytes. These mature in the bone marrow, and that's a good way to remember it. The B lymphocytes mature in the bone marrow and release antibodies that fight bacterial infections. T lymphocytes mature in the thymus and other lymphatic tissue and attack cancer cells, viruses, and foreign substances. Macrophages identify, pursue, and ingest harmful invaders and worn-out cells, and natural killer cells, or NK cells, pursue disease cells such as those infected by viruses or cancer. Immune system activity is affected by age, nutrition, genetics, body temperature, and stress. When the immune system does not function properly, it can err in one of 2 directions. It either responds too strongly or it does not respond strongly enough. If the immune system overreacts, the results include a self-attacking disease, some forms of arthritis, as well as allergic reactions. An underreaction in the immune system may result in bacterial infection flare-up, dormant virus eruption, or cancer cells multiplying. Stress hormones suppress the immune system. Research has shown this in animal studies where the stress of social disruption in monkeys caused weakened immune systems, as well as human studies where stress caused slower surgical wound healing, greater vulnerability to colds, and decreased effectiveness of flu vaccines. The point to remember is stress does not make people sick, but it reduces the immune system's ability to function optimally. We know that stress suppresses immune system functioning. So what does this mean for people with AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome? As its name tells us, AIDS is an immune disorder caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. Stress cannot give people AIDS, but may speed transition from HIV infection to AIDS and the decline of those with AIDS. Worldwide efforts to reduce stress have had some modest positive consequences for HIV-positive people. 33-3. Why are some of us more prone than others to coronary heart disease? Coronary heart disease is the clogging of the vessels that nourish the heart muscle, the leading cause of death in many developed countries. In the U.S., about 610,000 coronary heart disease-related deaths occur yearly. The stress and personality play a role in heart disease. The more psychological trauma people experience, the more their bodies generate inflammation, which is associated with heart and other health problems. Let's take a closer look at these personality factors. The Type A personality, a classic study by Meyer Friedman and colleagues, tested the idea that stress increases heart disease risk by measuring blood cholesterol level and clotting speed. Stress predicted heart attack risk for tax accountants. Type A men were more likely to have a heart attack. None of the pure Type B personalities suffered a heart attack. Blood pressure also rises as students approach stressful exams. If you look at the different personality types in this study, we can see in Type A, Friedman and Rosenman's term for competitive, hard-driving, impatient, verbal, aggressive, and anger-prone people. Type B is Friedman and Rosenman's term for easy-going, relaxed people. And Type D is a more recent term used for people who suppress negative emotion to avoid social disapproval. Grande et al. What are the effects of pessimism and depression? Pessimists are more than twice as likely as optimists to develop heart disease. Depression increases the risk of death, especially by cardiovascular disease. Stress and inflammation. Chronic stress triggers persistent inflammation, which increases the risk of heart disease and depression. There's a much greater risk of heart attacks among middle-aged American women facing significant work stress. Also greater for Danish nurses reporting work pressure, and middle-aged American workers facing involuntary job loss has more than double the risk of a heart attack. If you can see in this chart that looks at pessimism and heart disease, you can see the pessimists in the left bar have a higher percentage of developing coronary heart disease than people who are neutral or optimists. Stress can have a variety of health-related consequences. The photo you see is a man sitting in probably what is his hotel room in a hotel probably in one of the East Asia countries, where the focus on efficiency, squeezing as many people into a specific space as possible, is prime to comfort. In this case, being in a room this small probably would increase someone's feelings of stress due to not only being so close to so many other people, but also being into basically what is just a long rectangular box. This persistent stressor and negative emotion will release stress hormones. It has effects on the autonomic nervous system, such as headaches, high blood pressure, inflammation. It suppresses the immune system and can cause heart disease. In addition, if these persistent stressors and negative emotions occur, it could also lead to unhealthy behaviors, typically what we would call coping strategies, such as smoking, drinking alcohol, poor nutrition, and sleep. 33-4. How do strategies for handling anger compare in their effectiveness? Catharsis. In psychology, the idea that releasing aggressive energy through action or fantasy relieves our aggressive urges. Experts offer 3 suggestions to manage anger. The first is to wait. The emotional arousal will decrease if you wait just long enough. The second is to find a healthy distraction or support, such as exercise, play an instrument, talk to a friend. And the third is to distance yourself, and that's try to move away from the situation mentally. This can also help by moving away physically, as not being in the environment where the anger or the stress has occurred can help you to actually distance yourself mentally. When someone's behavior is really hurtful, follow the age-old advice to forgive. It releases anger and calms the body. And the opposite of this would be being resentful or holding a grudge, where you internalize the stress and hold on to the stress and anger, which is unhealthy and can lead to compromising your immune system. This brings us to the end of Module 33. I hope that you found a lot of the information very helpful, and I think stress is an extremely important thing to address in our lives, as some experts predict or report that we are actually experiencing a very stressful time in human history, as we see it in the news and the interconnection with the internet. And I just want to make one quick recommendation, is that it's extremely important to unplug from the world, to have quiet time, to let your mind wander, to have this energy sort of release by just not using the energy in your mind, so that you kind of let your thoughts flow free. It's very helpful, it's very healthy, and it's actually a very good way to reduce stress. Have a great week.